What if I told you that some SUVs are so reliable, your grandkids might inherit them and still complain about the fuel economy? Yeah, that reliable. Most cars today are basically built to keep your mechanics kids in college, but a few, just a few, were engineered differently. These machines were built to outlast trends, outlast presidents, and honestly, probably outlast most of us. Today, we're counting down the 5 SUVs that simply don't break down. The ones you buy once, hand down to your kids, and they still show up on time. Stick around, because number 1 on this list is not what you think. And once you hear it, you're either going to run to a dealership or call your mechanic and apologize.
All right, number 5. And look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. When most people think reliable SUV, there's one name that shows up before they even finish the thought. Toyota RAV4. Shocking, right? About as shocking as finding out water is wet. But here's the thing, there's a reason this car keeps winning. And it's not marketing, it's not coincidence, it's engineering obsession dressed up in a very sensible crossover body. The RAV4 has been around since 1994. Let that sink in. 1994, the same year The Lion King came out. And just like that movie, it has absolutely refused to go away. And honestly, we're grateful. But let's talk about why this thing is a cockroach in the best possible way. Toyota built the RAV4 on a philosophy called Kaizen, continuous improvement. Every single generation of this car came out better, tighter, more refined than the last. They didn't just slap a new body on the same old bones and call it a day. They genuinely obsessed over the details. The engine, the suspension geometry, the transmission calibration, all of it refined, generation after generation, like a chef who's been perfecting the same recipe for 30 years. The 2.5-liter 4-cylinder engine that sits under the hood of the modern RAV4, that thing is practically bulletproof. Owners regularly report crossing 200,000 miles, some even pushing past 300,000, with nothing more than oil changes, brake pads, and maybe a prayer to whatever deity they believe in. It's not exciting, it doesn't growl, it doesn't make your spine tingle at traffic lights, but it starts every single morning. And after a while, that becomes the most romantic thing a car can do. The hybrid version, even better. The RAV4 Hybrid pairs that same engine with an electric motor system so well engineered that taxi fleets in multiple countries adopted it specifically because of how little maintenance it needs over time. You read that right. Professional fleets where cars run 12 hours a day chose the RAV4 Hybrid because it simply refuses to give up. And the transmission. Toyota's CVT and automatic gearboxes in the RAV4 have an almost legendary track record. Where other brands' transmissions start crying around 80,000 miles, the RAV4 just warms up. It's like that one guy at the gym who doesn't break a sweat until everyone else is already on the floor. Now, and this is important, the RAV4 is also one of the most affordable vehicles to maintain on the planet. Parts are everywhere. Mechanics know it in their sleep. You can walk into almost any shop in almost any city in almost any country, and they will know exactly what to do with a RAV4. That's a level of universality that very few vehicles ever achieve. But, and you knew a but was coming, no car is perfect, not even this one. So here's what you need to watch if you're shopping for a used RAV4. The third generation, specifically models from 2006 to 2012, had a known issue with oil consumption. Some of those engines would quietly sip oil between changes without telling you. Not catastrophic, but if you're not checking your dipstick regularly, you could find yourself in a bad situation. Always check maintenance records, always do an oil consumption test before buying one from that era. The fourth generation, 2013 to 2018, is generally solid, but the early models had some reports of water pump issues and a few electrical gremlins, particularly around the infotainment system. Nothing that should scare you away, but something to keep in mind during a pre-purchase inspection. On the newer 5th-gen models, post-2019, the biggest thing people flag is the CVT transmission can feel sluggish under hard acceleration. Not a reliability issue, more of a character quirk. Just know what you're getting into. This car is not built to thrill, it's built to survive. Bottom line, The Toyota RAV4 earns its place on this list not because it's flashy, not because it has the best specs on paper, but because decade after decade, in country after country, in the hands of families, rideshare drivers, adventurers, and everything in between, it just keeps going. It's the most dependable kind of boring you'll ever fall in love with. And trust me, once you've owned one long enough, boring never felt so good. All right, number 4 is up next, and this one comes from a country that also gave the world precision watches and really good chocolate. Coincidence that they also build one of the most reliable SUVs ever made? I think not. Stay with me.
Okay, real talk. There was a time, not that long ago, when if you told someone, "I'm buying a Hyundai," they would look at you the same way your dentist looks at you when you say you've been flossing every day. Pure, polite disbelief. Hyundai spent years fighting that reputation, and then, quietly, methodically, almost stubbornly, they flipped the entire script. And the Hyundai Creta might just be the single greatest proof of that transformation. This car is a phenomenon, not in the way a supercar is a phenomenon, not loud, not outrageous, more like the phenomenon of showing up to a potluck with something homemade and somehow being the last dish standing at the end of the night. Understated, reliable, genuinely impressive once you pay attention. The Creta launched in 2015 and almost immediately became one of the best-selling compact SUVs in markets across Asia, Latin America, the Middle East, and beyond. And it didn't get there by accident. Hyundai made a very calculated decision with this car. Build something that everyday people can actually afford to own, maintain, and trust for the long haul. Not just buy, own. There's a massive difference between those two things, and Hyundai understood that better than most. Now, let's talk about what actually lives under that hood, because this is where it gets interesting. The Creta's engine lineup, particularly the 1.5-liter naturally aspirated petrol engine, is one of the most understressed power plants in its class, and understressed is one of the most beautiful words in automotive engineering. What that means in plain English is that this engine is never really working at its limit. It's always operating comfortably within its own capabilities, which means less heat, less wear, less everything that leads to a repair bill showing up uninvited on a Tuesday morning. Naturally aspirated engines, no turbocharger in the mix, tend to be simpler by design. Fewer components, fewer failure points, fewer reasons to spend a Saturday at the mechanic instead of literally anywhere else. The Creta's base engine lives by that principle, and owners across the globe have responded by keeping these cars running well past 150,000 miles with nothing dramatic to report. That's not luck, that's architecture. The 6-speed automatic gearbox that pairs with it is another quiet hero of this story. Hyundai tuned it to be smooth, predictable, and unpretentious, and that restraint pays off massively over time. It's not a transmission trying to be clever, it's a transmission trying to last, and it does. Then there's the build quality, which, by the way, has been one of Hyundai's secret weapons for the last decade. The Creta feels solid. Doors close with a satisfying thunk. The interior materials hold up surprisingly well to years of daily abuse. Road noise is well controlled. These things matter because a car that feels like it's falling apart psychologically affects how you trust it mechanically, even if it's perfectly fine underneath. The Creta never gives you that anxiety. Hyundai also backs the Creta with a warranty program that in many markets spans 5 years or more, which tells you something very specific. Brands that offer long warranties on their vehicles aren't being generous, they're being confident. They know the failure rates, they've done the math. A long warranty is basically the manufacturer saying, in the most corporate way possible, yeah, we're not worried. But let's be real, because this is that part of the segment where we keep it honest. The Creta is not without its quirks, and if you're shopping for one, especially used, there are a few things worth watching closely. The turbocharged engine variants, specifically the 1.4-liter turbo petrol found in certain trims and generations, have had reported issues with carbon buildup and in some cases turbo reliability over higher mileage. It's not a deal breaker, but it demands more disciplined maintenance than the naturally aspirated option. If someone is selling a turbo Creta and they look a little vague when you ask about service history, walk away, slowly, then faster. The DCT dual-clutch transmission offered in some versions has also generated mixed feedback from owners. In stop-and-go city traffic, it can feel jerky and hesitant at low speeds, and over time, that constant engagement in heavy traffic can wear the clutch packs faster than ideal.
If you're buying used and the car has lived most of its life in a city with brutal traffic, get that transmission inspected without compromise. Early first-generation models also had a few reports of infotainment glitches and some suspension creaking over time. Not catastrophic, but worth checking during a test drive. Run it over some uneven road and listen. Cars talk, you just have to know when to pay attention. Here's the bottom line on the Hyundai Creta. This is a car that rewards sensible people. If you maintain it correctly, choose the right powertrain for your lifestyle, and don't expect it to behave like a sports car, it will serve you faithfully for years in a way that makes you question why you ever doubted it in the first place. It's the automotive equivalent of that underrated employee who never calls in sick, never misses a deadline, and just quietly gets everything done. And honestly, in a world full of drama, a car like that is everything. Coming up next, number 3 on our list, and this one comes from a brand that basically invented the concept of going anywhere, surviving anything, and looking completely unbothered while doing it. You already know the name, but what you don't know might completely change how you see it. Don't touch that screen.
There is a car on this list that costs less than most people spend on a decent holiday, comes with 4-wheel drive, genuine off-road capability, and a reliability record that makes engineers at far more expensive brands quietly uncomfortable. And before you scroll away thinking this is some obscure Eastern European joke, stop. Because the Dacia Duster is one of the most intelligently engineered SUVs ever built, and the fact that it doesn't get more respect in the conversation is frankly one of the great automotive injustices of our time. Yes, I said it, and no, I'm not taking it back. Dacia is a Romanian brand, and before your brain does whatever it's about to do with that information, consider this. Dacia is owned by Renault, and the Duster shares its mechanical DNA with some of the most proven platforms in the European market. But here's where it gets brilliant. Dacia took that solid foundation and then did something almost radical in the modern automotive world. They stripped away everything unnecessary. No gimmicks, no over-engineered complexity for the sake of impressing someone at a dinner party. Just a car built to be honest, functional, and extraordinarily hard to kill. The Duster's secret weapon isn't one single thing, it's a philosophy. Dacia's entire engineering approach is built around simplicity and robustness. The fewer components you have, the fewer components can fail. It sounds almost too obvious when you say it out loud, but the rest of the industry seems to have completely forgotten this principle, while busy adding massage seats and 17 different driving modes to compact SUVs nobody asked for. The 1.6-liter naturally aspirated petrol engine, particularly in the first and second generation Dusters, is a masterpiece of low-stress engineering. It makes no wild claims about horsepower. It doesn't try to be impressive. It simply runs, correctly, for a very, very long time. Owners across Europe, the Middle East, and markets in Africa and South America have reported these engines crossing 200,000 kilometers with nothing more than scheduled servicing, some even further. In regions where roads are more suggestion than infrastructure, the Duster has become a genuine working tool, not just a lifestyle accessory. That's the highest possible endorsement a car can receive. The 4-wheel drive system on the equipped variants is another chapter in this story of beautiful simplicity. It's not a sophisticated, electronically managed, torque-vectoring all-wheel drive system with 17 sensors and a computer trying to predict the future. It's a mechanical, driver-controlled 4WD setup with a low-range transfer case, the kind of system that's been proven across decades of use in far harsher environments than most SUV owners will ever encounter. It's honest engineering, and honest engineering lasts. The suspension geometry deserves a mention too. Dacia tuned the Duster with generous ground clearance and a suspension setup that absorbs punishment without complaint. It wasn't designed for the smoothest roads, it was designed for all the other ones. That suspension's durability track record reflects exactly that intention, and owners consistently report that the underpinnings hold up remarkably well even under years of genuinely rough use. Parts availability and repair costs are where the Duster quietly destroys the competition.
Because Dacia shares components extensively with Renault's broader platform, parts are accessible, affordable, and familiar to any mechanic who has ever worked on a European vehicle. You are never stranded waiting for some obscure proprietary component to arrive from the other side of the planet. And that, particularly if you ever find yourself in a remote area with a car that needs attention, is not a small thing. That is everything. Now, let's talk about the watch-outs, because the Duster earns its honesty, and so does this segment. The interior, particularly in earlier models, is not going to win any awards. Soft-touch plastics were not part of the brief. If you press on the dashboard of a first-gen Duster and expect it to feel like a luxury SUV, you will be disappointed. But if you think about it the right way, less soft-touch plastic means less soft-touch plastic warping, cracking, and falling apart 5 years later. Spartan? Yes. Durable? Absolutely. The 1.5-liter diesel engine, while popular for fuel economy reasons, has had documented issues with its diesel particulate filter, the DPF, particularly in vehicles that are driven predominantly on short, urban trips. If a diesel Duster never gets a proper run at highway speeds regularly enough to regenerate that filter, you can end up with a blocked DPF situation that becomes expensive and deeply frustrating. If you're buying a used diesel Duster, find out exactly how it was used, city car or road car. The answer matters more than the mileage. Some owners of the turbocharged petrol variants, the TCE engines introduced in the second generation, have reported turbo lag, and in higher mileage examples, some oil consumption worth monitoring. The turbocharged models are still solid, but they do ask slightly more of your maintenance discipline than the naturally aspirated versions. Keep up with the oil changes, use the correct specification, and they reward you generously. There's also a noise and vibration level in the Duster that is simply higher than what you'd experience in a more premium competitor. Wind noise at highway speed, road noise from the robust tires. It's not a quiet car. But again, context matters. This car was built to go everywhere, survive anything, and cost you as little as possible for as long as possible. Some road noise is the trade. Here's what the Dacia Duster ultimately represents and why it belongs firmly on this list. It's a car that was designed by people who genuinely asked the question, what does a vehicle actually need to do, and how do we make sure it does that for the longest time possible? The answer they came up with was not complicated, and in a world where complication is often mistaken for value, the Duster stands as a quiet, muddy, gloriously unpretentious proof that the simplest solution is very often the best one. It's not trying to impress you, it's trying to outlast you, and based on the evidence, it just might. 2 spots left. And I promise you, the next one on this list is a name that's been through more extreme conditions, more continents, and more genuinely insane terrain than most military vehicles, and it still sells millions. There's a reason for that. Stay right there.
Let me paint you a picture. It's 2012. The world is worried about the apocalypse because apparently that was a thing we were all doing that year. Smartphones are getting smarter, everyone's streaming everything, and Mitsubishi quietly releases a compact SUV that over a decade later, people are still buying used, still driving daily, still recommending to their friends, and still absolutely refusing to get rid of. No apocalypse came, but the ASX, it stayed, and that should tell you something. The Mitsubishi ASX, known in some markets as the Outlander Sport or the RVR, is one of those cars that never quite got the spotlight it deserved. It didn't have a massive marketing campaign, it didn't have celebrity endorsements, it didn't promise to change your life or make you feel like a rugged explorer every time you backed out of a supermarket parking lot. What it had was something far more valuable than any of that. It had Mitsubishi's engineering DNA, and specifically a 2.0-liter 4-cylinder MyVec engine that turned out to be one of the most durable power plants in the compact SUV segment of its era. MyVec, Mitsubishi Innovative Valve Timing Electronic Control, is Mitsubishi's variable valve timing technology, and in the 2012 ASX, it was paired to a naturally aspirated engine that hit an almost perfect sweet spot between performance and longevity.
Not turbocharged, not overcomplicated, not trying to extract every last horsepower at the cost of reliability. Just a clean, well-breathing engine that asked for regular maintenance and gave back years of faithful service in return. That's the deal. And owners across multiple continents took that deal and never looked back. Transmission-wise, the CVT, continuously variable transmission, in the 2012 ASX has earned a genuinely respectable track record, which is not something you can say about every CVT on the market. Mitsubishi had significant experience with this type of transmission long before many of their competitors, and that experience shows in how well-sorted the unit feels and how it holds up over time. Properly serviced, and that word properly is doing a lot of heavy lifting here, these gearboxes have proven capable of going well beyond 150,000 miles without major drama. The body structure of the 2012 ASX is another quiet strength. Mitsubishi built this car with a rigidity that punches above its price class. It doesn't flex, it doesn't creak, and the structural integrity holds up remarkably well as the years add up. Take it down a rough road, and it feels composed in a way that makes you realize the engineers were thinking about durability, not just comfort in a showroom. And that composure isn't just about ride quality. A rigid body structure means less stress on every other component attached to it. It's a cascade effect. Build the skeleton strong, and everything else lasts longer too. The four-wheel drive system on the AWD variants, Mitsubishi's Super All-Wheel Control, or SAWC in its more advanced form on related platforms, draws from the same engineering lineage that powered Mitsubishi's legendary rally pedigree. Now, the ASX isn't a rally car, let's be very clear about that, but the AWD hardware underneath it was developed by people who knew exactly what drivetrain stress looks like at its absolute worst, and they built accordingly. The result is a system that's both capable and surprisingly low maintenance over time. Running costs are another area where the 2012 ASX quietly wins arguments. Parts are accessible, the engine and drivetrain are familiar to mechanics who have worked with Mitsubishi products across multiple generations, servicing costs are reasonable, fuel consumption is sensible without being spectacular. This is a car that doesn't ambush you financially after the purchase, and in a world where some vehicles feel like they come with a hidden subscription service for repair bills, that quality is genuinely priceless. But here's the part of the show where we get honest, because the 2012 ASX, wonderful as it is, comes with a few things worth knowing before you hand over your money. The CVT transmission, praised above, and rightfully so, is not invincible. Its single biggest enemy is neglect. CVT fluid changes are not optional on this vehicle, they are non-negotiable. Many owners skip them because the service intervals can seem long, and some older service manuals even describe the fluid as lifetime, which in practice turned out to mean lifetime of the fluid, not lifetime of the car. Change that CVT fluid regularly. Do it. Your future self will write you a thank you note. The air conditioning compressor on some 2012 ASX examples has been a reported weak point, particularly in hotter climates where the system runs hard for extended periods. If you're test driving a used one, run the air conditioning for a sustained period and listen carefully for any unusual noises from the compressor. A rattling or struggling AC on a vehicle this age is not something to brush off. Repairs can escalate quickly if left unattended. Rust is also worth discussing, particularly on examples that lived in regions with harsh winters and road salt. Check the undercarriage, the wheel arches, and the sill panels carefully. The 2012 ASX wasn't particularly notorious for rust compared to some competitors, but over 10 years of exposure to the elements means that how a car was stored and where it lived matters enormously by now. A clean undercarriage on a 2012 vehicle is a very good sign. Surface rust on the arches that looks like it's been there for years without treatment? Proceed with caution. The infotainment system in the 2012 model is, by today's standards, delightfully prehistoric. Touchscreen? Modest at best. Smartphone integration? Essentially zero without aftermarket help. If you're someone who needs the latest connectivity features built in from the factory, the 2012 ASX is going to test your patience. That said, a simple infotainment system is an infotainment system that won't suddenly develop mysterious software errors at 100,000 miles. There's a silver lining to every ancient screen. What the 2012 Mitsubishi ASX ultimately represents is a kind of automotive honesty that has become increasingly rare. It was never the most exciting thing on the road, it was never the fastest, the most luxurious, or the most technologically advanced option in its segment. But it was engineered with integrity, built with durability as a genuine priority, and over more than a decade of real-world use across wildly different climates and conditions, it proved every single one of those intentions correct. That's a legacy worth respecting. Buy one with a clean service history, sort out the CVT fluid situation immediately, check it over for rust, and what you have on your hands is one of the most cost-effective and trustworthy used SUVs available at any price point. Full stop. One spot left, number 1. And I need you to understand, this isn't just a car, this is a cultural institution, a machine so respected, so deeply proven, that entire industries have been built around keeping it running. If you think you already know what it is, you might be right, but what you're about to hear about it, that part I guarantee you don't know. Don't go anywhere.
Here we are, number 1. And before anyone in the comments writes, "I knew it," yes, you probably did. But knowing the answer and understanding why it's the answer are two completely different things. And by the time we're done here, you're not just going to know the Honda CR-V is on this list. You're going to understand it on a level that will genuinely change how you look at this car forever. The Honda CR-V has been in continuous production since 1995. 30 years, 3 decades. It has survived financial crises, fuel price collapses, an entire revolution in automotive technology, the rise of electric vehicles, and approximately 4,000 other SUVs trying to take its crown. And it's still here, still selling, still winning reliability surveys, still being recommended by mechanics who, by the way, have a very personal financial incentive to recommend cars that break down, and they're recommending the CR-V anyway. Think about that for a second. When the people who make money fixing cars tell you to buy something because it won't need fixing, you listen. Honda built the CR-V on a philosophy that runs so deep inside the company, it might as well be written into the walls of their factories. They call it the pursuit of the power of dreams. But what that translates to in engineering terms is an obsessive, almost stubborn refusal to release anything that hasn't been tested, validated, stressed, and proven beyond reasonable doubt. Honda's engine development process is legendary in the industry. Their tolerances are tighter, their quality control thresholds are stricter, and the CR-V has benefited from every single layer of that culture across every generation it has ever produced. The K-Series 4-cylinder, specifically the K24, a 2.4-liter naturally aspirated unit that became one of the most celebrated engines in automotive history, not just in SUVs, in automotive history, full stop. The K24 is the kind of engine mechanics talk about with a specific kind of reverence, usually reserved for things that don't belong in conversations about compact crossovers. It is robust, it is smooth, it is extraordinarily well engineered, and in properly maintained CR-Vs, it has routinely delivered 250,000, 300,000, and in documented cases beyond 400,000 miles of service. 400,000 miles in a family SUV. That's not a reliability record, that's a flex. The build philosophy extends far beyond just the engine. Honda engineers the CR-V's drivetrain, suspension, and body structure with what the industry calls over-engineering, meaning the components are built to handle significantly more stress than they will ever realistically encounter in normal use.
The margins are wide on purpose. The safety buffer built into every system is generous on purpose because Honda's engineers understood something profoundly simple. The further a component operates from its maximum stress threshold, the longer it lasts. Give a machine room to breathe, and it will breathe for a very long time. The real-time AWD system on CR-V models so equipped is another chapter in this story. Honda's approach to all-wheel drive on the CR-V has always been elegantly practical, engaging the rear wheels when needed, disengaging when not, reducing unnecessary drivetrain wear during normal driving conditions. It's not the most aggressive AWD system on the market. It was never meant to be. It was meant to last and to deliver just enough capability to handle the situations real CR-V owners actually encounter, which, for the overwhelming majority, is wet roads, light snow, and the occasional unpaved parking situation at a farmer's market. Honda knows its customers, and it engineered accordingly. Resale value is where the CR-V makes its final decisive argument. A well-maintained Honda CR-V holds its value in a way that borders on irrational by the standards of the broader used car market. That retention is not driven by marketing. It is driven entirely by the second-hand market's collective, data-driven understanding that a used CR-V is one of the safest bets available at virtually any age or mileage. The market has essentially done the reliability testing for you over 30 years and priced it in accordingly. Now, integrity demands we talk about the watchouts, because even the most decorated car on this list has chapters worth reading carefully. The 1.5-liter turbocharged engine introduced in the 5th-generation CR-V, the 2017 onwards models, brought a well-documented oil dilution issue in certain climates, particularly in colder regions where short trips prevent the engine from reaching full operating temperature. In those conditions, raw fuel can contaminate the engine oil, reducing its protective properties significantly. Honda addressed this through software updates and extended the recommended oil change intervals for affected owners. But if you're buying a 5th-gen CR-V that spent its early life in a cold climate and has an unclear service history, check the oil condition carefully and establish how the vehicle was primarily used. The 2017 to 2018 models also generated more complaints around the turbocharged engine's refinement compared to the old naturally aspirated K24. More vibration at idle, slightly less smooth power delivery. Not a catastrophic issue, but worth a thorough test drive if you're choosing between generations. Some people feel it immediately, some don't notice at all, but you should form your own opinion before buying, not after. Older 3rd and 4th generation CR-Vs, roughly 2007 to 2016, can develop air conditioning compressor wear over time, and some examples have shown rear differential issues on AWD models if the rear differential fluid was never changed. Again, maintenance records are everything on a used CR-V. A CR-V with clean, documented service history is one of the safest used vehicle purchases you can make. A CR-V with a mystery past is still probably fine, but probably fine is not how you want to approach a major purchase. Know what you're buying. Here is the truth about the Honda CR-V, stated as plainly as it deserves to be stated. This is the car that earned the #1 spot not through one dramatic achievement, not through one exceptional generation, but through 30 years of consistent, proven real-world excellence across millions of owners in virtually every condition imaginable. It is the benchmark, the car that every other manufacturer on this list has at some point looked at and quietly said, "That's the standard we're measuring against." It is not the most exciting vehicle ever built, but in the game of long-term ownership, where excitement is expensive and dependability is everything, the Honda CR-V plays a different game entirely, and it plays it better than almost anyone else ever has. Own one long enough, and you won't just appreciate it, you'll understand why some people buy a second one before the first one even breaks down, which, knowing the CR-V, might be a very long wait indeed.
And that's our list.
5 SUVs built not for the showroom, not for the brochure, not for the Instagram post, but for the long road, the real road, the one you drive every single day, in every kind of weather, with every kind of passenger and every kind of expectation. These machines earn their reputations the old-fashioned way, by simply refusing to quit. If this video helped you, challenged something you thought you knew, or maybe just confirmed what you already suspected about that CR-V sitting in your driveway, hit that like button. It genuinely helps this channel more than you might think, and it tells us you want more of exactly this kind of content. Subscribe if you haven't already, because we go deep on cars the way they deserve to be talked about. Honestly, thoroughly, and with just enough humor to make the medicine go down easy. And drop a comment below telling us which SUV on this list surprised you the most, or which one you own and refuse to get rid of. We read every single one. Every one. This channel runs on that conversation, and we wouldn't have it any other way. We'll see you in the next one. Don't break down out there.